This program is designed and produced by the community with the support of Cogeco TV.
Hi, I'm Mayor Walter Sendzik, and welcome to Our Home with Mayor Sendzik. Today we are going to be talking about economic development. We're talking about the economy of Niagara and where we're going. We have three special guests joining us today who are immersed in working with businesses. They are the leaders who are going out beyond the borders of Niagara to attract business into our community. And they are really on the front lines of where Niagara is going in terms of its economy. And it's an important topic because a lot of times people ask, what can government do to attract business? What's the role of government when it comes to the strength of an economy? And how can a mayor or council or staff, how can they even influence the economy that we're in here today? And it's an interesting discussion because if we don't, as a community or as a city, as a region, invest in economic development, what does that mean from the perspective of a business that's looking to move its operations or invest its next generation of technology into a community? If we're not being seen at a larger level, if we're not investing in economic development so that we can make the kind of trip to Europe or be in Chicago or New York City for a major investment opportunity, what does it mean? So I think from today's episode, what I'm hoping you take away from is that we're investing in economic development, and I'll put it on the table. I think we need to invest more in economic development because when we talk about job creation, when we talk about the state of our economy and jobs, we can't just wait for the phone to ring and pick it up and say, how can we help you? We actually have to go out there, just like any business, and fight for business to come into our community. And so we're joined today, we have David Oakes, who is the Director of Economic Development at the region, Dan Degazio, who is the Director of Economic Development for the City of Welland, which is undertaking a tremendous transformation in terms of their economy and where they're going. And working with me every day is Brian York, the Director of Economic Development for the City of St. Catharines. And these three individuals combined, when you look at what they've been able to do and where they've come from and their skill sets. Dave's worked previously at the City of St. Catharines in economic development. Dan Degazio, I think you've been in economic development for the better part of the last, 25 years, and has seen the ups and downs of the Niagara economy and the Welland economy. And Brian York, who has been with the City of St. Catharines for a number of years, as well understands the transformation that has taken place, not just in manufacturing, but in our downtown. So we've got three individuals who have a lot of experience. And I just want to touch on the opening remarks. I think I'm going to start, Dan, with you in terms of what role does government play in attracting jobs to a community or creating the conditions for economic opportunities?
Well, Mayor, we always say we don't create jobs, we give opportunities. And with in our situation, the government plays a huge role in the creation of the opportunity. And ourself alone, and we talk about the GE facility or Northern Gold, it was always when we brought in the mayor to the meetings, the companies would stand up and take notice and say, your city is really interested in this. When the mayor is involved, the government's involved, and they show cooperation, that's when companies start paying attention, saying, you know what, you people are really interested. If I go out and knock on a door, it's fine, they like it. But when we bring the government involved and we bring people from our municipalities or the politicians, and they realize that this is a whole community behind it, that's when they really stand up and take notice, and they really think that there's something there to it. It's crucial to us. Any meeting that I have with a new company or companies that are coming in, our mayor is always available. He might not say a lot, but his presence stands for 1,000 words, and that's critical to any kind of opportunity we have. The government does play a big role in this. They want to know they can be in the ground, no red tape. They want to be in the ground as quick as possible, And that's the big thing that we have a success on our side. We've been getting people on the ground because we have support from the political side. That's where government plays a big part of it.
And I think we're gonna come back to one of the big success stories of Niagara probably in the past 40 years. Is we're gonna come back to that. But I want to go over, Brian, in terms of, you look at what's happened in St. Catharines over the last little while, the attraction of IKEA to our community, coal engineering, clickback. What role did economic development play in attracting those businesses specifically to St. Catharines?
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. We're facilitators at best. We're expediters. So our primary role is that business retention expansion in the community. So we want to see the businesses we have grow, but again, there's an opportunity to bring new investment to the community, and we're frontline service from the initial meeting to the ribbon cutting. We're holding the hand of business the entire way, and then there's that aftercare, that follow-up. So when a company's going through that permitting process, we are working with our planning and building services team and with our engineering team, and that includes the region and our Team Niagara colleagues.
So I want to just ask you a very pointed question. Would a company like Clickback be in St. Catharines if it wasn't for the role of economic development?
I don't think so.
They're a downtown technology firm. They're located in they have 70 plus employees. Would they have located in downtown St. Catharines?
I think it's opportunity, Mayor. So Clickback is a Niagara-based success story. Kyle and his team have been in this community for a number of years, and they want to continue to invest in this community. The region happened to have a surplus building that fit their needs. They capitalized on it, and we couldn't be prouder to see them in our downtown.
And another one that is more North American would be Ting Mobile. So again, downtown St. Catharines, would they?
So Ting's a real interesting story. Global company, roots in Toronto, roots in the U.S. They took a hard look at Buffalo and the U.S. market and a little bit in Southern Ontario, and our staff won them over. They won them over on the growth opportunity in the downtown, and Dave is my predecessor or my former director. He gave us the latitude to go out and get them. And they're happy in the core. They've got a great facility, and it's more of the Ting Mobiles that we're looking to attract downtown.
So we've got the success story and on a local level in St. Catharines. Dave, I want to pivot to you because we head into budget season. A lot of people look at budgets and they look at economic development. Well, let's cut that budget. What does that budget do? You've had an opportunity now. You've been in economic development for the City of St. Catharines, and you're now at the region. What role does investment into economic development play in creating, as Dan was talking about, the conditions for economic opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you factor in the conversation at the budget table, and when you look at the magnitude and the budget size of what economic development does and the resources that we do have, but then you start to factor in the return on the investment. So you look at a GE, and kudos to the City of Welland to be able to turn around something so quickly and get the steel in the ground and the foundations up in such a quick amount of time. But when you talk about having economic development and having that positioning the region and the municipalities, you need to invest in it. And we're in a global economy right now, and it's really based on strategy at this stage. So when you're talking, and we're talking globally, and companies like GE, as the example, or Ting Mobile is another one, they're not just looking at Niagara. They're looking all over the map. They're talking to site selectors, they're talking to consultants, and if we're not talking to those people, and we don't have relationships with those groups, if we don't have relationships with the consulate offices, the federal government, the provincial government have offices all over the world. And if they don't know what we have to offer in Niagara, they won't be able to tell the clients in those various jurisdictions what Niagara has to offer. So it's incumbent on us to be able to get out there. And it doesn't always mean we have to go traveling around the globe. It's building those relationships with the consulates. It's building those relationships with the site selectors and showing that we're a united front. And at the same time, we have a plan and we have a strategy and we have councils and a regional council that is focused on economic prosperity. So by having all of these elements layered on top of one another, it becomes an easy sell. And now with GE and Ting and some of these really great news stories, the credibility is there because the private sector believed in us and they're actually coming and putting in investment in our communities.
So you've talked about GE. I want to pivot back to Dan because that is a generational announcement when you see something like GE coming into Welland. In terms of, Dan, were we even on the map when GE first put out that, hey, we're looking to build a brilliant factory somewhere in Canada? Were we even on that map?
No, that's the interesting part when you ask about economic development. Does it help? If it wasn't for the Economic Development Office in Niagara and all of our communities, GE would not have been here. And you talk about relationship building, GE would not have been here. When, in fact, GE made the announcement, we were all on the phones trying to make calls, and then, of course, the next call was to each other saying, like, wait a minute, let's go after this as a whole as opposed to individually. Back then, Dave's predecessor, Bob Sagan, had a relationship with Kim Warburton from Public Relations of GE, contacted her when they were down into Niagara for the Ontario Summit. Luckily, it happened to be in the same week. It was maybe fate. But that relationship that Bob had with Kim from years ago allowed us to have a meeting. When we had the meeting with GE, they gave us a nice meeting, and they thought they'd be very courteous to us. The meeting was called. We sat in the meeting. The first thing they told us, sorry, boys, you are not on the radar screen. Niagara, we don't even know nothing about Niagara. You don't fit the bill. After about a 45-minute meeting with GE, with all 5 economic development offices in the region combined, they started listening and saying, oh, you know what? You got a good story. And the big story was our incentive program, the CIP program.
So that CIP is Community
Improvement Plan, Gateway Incentive Program. Yeah. That was a program they had no idea about. And again, that's our lack of maybe relationship building across the province or across the globe, initiating this incentive program. So that was the part that really brought GE to the table and had them listen. Within 2 weeks, they asked us to bring a short list of properties around our community. All 5 Niagara communities and the rest of Niagara were allowed to put properties available to this, into the mix. That's where economic development really played a big role. We knew our communities, we knew we worked together, and the fact that the 5 communities in the region were working on the project as a whole, GE looked at us like, really? You don't care where it goes? We said, as long as it comes to Niagara. Yeah. Just bring it to Niagara, we'll do the rest. Yeah. And then we upheld our end of the deal, and so they're here. But economic development played a huge role in that, in the whole GE thing. It's not only a generational project, it's probably beyond that. I mean, the province was so excited, they said this is the largest investment, non-automotive in Ontario in the last 100 years. So.
And that's where I think the scalability, and I think that's what the public has to really start to understand, is that the impact of this investment into Welland and the reverberations across the Niagara economy. This is the kind of factory that's the technology that'll be inside. It's where the economy is going. And so when people say manufacturing it's not in our community anymore, manufacturing is dead, it's the traditional stamp iron that takes a lot of power to do that. Maybe that is challenging, but the new way of manufacturing is really where the future is. And I think the Brilliant Factory by GE is going to reposition Niagara as that manufacturing output community that is geared for the next 50, 100 years. And it all started with economic development. It started with, let's pursue this as a team, and let's make sure that when we're speaking to a company like GE, it's as a Niagara voice. It's not as individual municipalities. And so when we get back from the break, we're going to build on the regionalization of our economy, where we're going, and how being a global player means that we have to play as a team, but we also have to get our message right and where we're going. So when we get back from the break, we're going to talk more about economic development and show how our economic development team here is creating the next generation of job opportunities for Niagara moving forward. Hi, it's Mayor Sendzik. Welcome back to our home with Mayor Sendzik, and we're joined at the table. We usually have a couch, but we wanted to bring a little bit more formality into this discussion about economic development. And I think what you heard just before the break is a lot of the opportunities that come from working together, the regionalization of our economy, the success of GE coming to Niagara, and what that means for the future of manufacturing. And when we talk about the regionalization of our economy. It's recognizing that we're moving into more of a global space. And I think for a long time, we looked at our economy as we're connected to the GTA. We're an economy that's competing with the GTA. We're competing with our neighbors south of the border in Buffalo. But the reality is that we're in a North American space, competing for global investments into our community as well. So want to touch, and I'm going to go to Dave first because you're at the Niagara epicenter of economic development. In terms of how important is it for us to be in a space that is competing with other regional jurisdictions around North America? What role does economic development play, and what are your plans for putting Niagara on the global stage?
I think it's critically important. And I think when you look at where the world economy is going with the various trade agreements that Canada's entered into, huge opportunity for a variety of reasons for Niagara. The first is our location. We talk about having the border crossings. We're right on the border of the United States, the biggest consumer market in the world. We are right next door to Hamilton. We have the Welland Canal. We have all of these amazing assets that are in our backyard that a lot of us take for granted, or you're sitting and waiting for a Laker to go through the Welland Canal and you're stopped in traffic. But what you don't realize is the amount of trade that's going through there. And when you start to factor and build on the partnerships and the adjacent relationships between New York State and Hamilton in particular, the assets that we do have are truly significant on the global scale. The Welland Canal is the third largest shipping canal in the world. The Niagara region has the second most amount of commodities going through it between Canada and the US. So all of these factors, and then you factor in Hamilton with their airport, with the Port Authority, all of these elements start to really build a story that is globally significant. And when you start to put that message out, and the only way you can put it out is by talking and working collaboratively with the various groups in Hamilton Economic Development, with the cities in Niagara, and also with New York State counties and their economic development offices, to start to build that case and really grow what we're trying to say.
So Brian, economic development, City of St. Catharines, how important is it for us to be plugged into the Niagara globalization and the vision?
Incredibly important, Mr. Mayor. We take a Team Niagara approach in any of our investment attraction initiatives. So the leadership of the region, the budget of the region on a marketing side gets us into those markets. Looking at the 4 or 5 border crossings when you count the rail, the New York State is extremely important to our economy, as is the partnerships that we built with Hamilton, and Dave touched on it a little bit, but that was born out of Pan Am. So Dan and I and the region, so City of Welland, City of St. Catharines and the region, we partnered with the City of Hamilton on marketing our communities around the Pan Am Games. So we've got international visitors coming. Those are business visitors too. They have families to watch the games, but they're also professionals in their own communities. We want to give them a reason to either partner with us or bring investment this way. And it was very successful. That relationship continues today, and the Hamilton-Niagara Partnership will look at some more trade opportunities with the Pan-American nations.
So Dan, a lot of the talk on transportation has been about moving of goods, and the moving of people is also important. And it's interesting because the mayor of Frank Campy and the mayor of Welland has been very vocal in support of GO. And the GO train, even though the GO train won't have a stop in Welland, in terms of a rail running through it that has the commuter traffic, very supportive of it. What kind of economic impact does GO have for a community like Welland?
Well, I think it allows us to get into a bigger market. I mean, even though Welland's, it's only a 15-minute drive from St. Catharines. It's not like we're driving hours and hours and hours. It's a 15, 20-minute commute. So it allows people to go both ways, to live in Welland, to work in Toronto, or to come from Toronto to work in Welland. It makes our world so much smaller. It just collapses everything. It makes us to a point where we are an option. We're a very viable option to anybody, basically from the GTA right to Fort Erie. It allows our region to open up to the world, basically, to a population that we're talking about. Hamilton, Niagara, 1 million people, but the GTA is another 3 million people.
Yeah.
That GO train brings us an opportunity to 3 million people.
Right.
Right now, we're getting it. The people who are smart out of the GTA are now finding that they can come down to Niagara live here very, very, very handsomely and still work in GTA, but they can also find jobs now in Niagara.
Right.
There are jobs here, and now we're opening up the world to everybody.
Right.
We're actually going to be doing a promotion in next little while in the GTA, and that's going to be what it's all about. The GO train's coming, industry's coming. We do have technology jobs here that are very, very enviable compared to the rest of the world. You can make $100,000 living in Niagara. It's like $250,000 in Toronto.
Right.
I mean, people are starting to realize that. My neighborhood alone is a GTA neighborhood, if you want to put it in that perspective, and they just absolutely love the Niagara region.
So I want to ask you, Dan, you've been through this game for a long time. Is this our time? Is this Niagara's? You've seen the ups and downs. Is this our time, and is this where we're taking off?
This is, Mr. Mayor, this is absolutely our time. And I've been involved for 30 years, from being in politics to being a bureaucrat. I've never seen a time so ripe as it is right now. This is absolutely our time. But the one thing we have to see when it's your time, having been through sports, when you're the champion, you have to fight harder, because everybody's trying to knock you off.
Right.
This is our time where we have to come together as a region, from municipalities to regional bureaucrats and politicians, that we have to work not less. We're not successful. In order to be successful, you have to work. You have to be the hardest worker in the ring.
Right.
My brother was a professional fighter. He wasn't allowed, when he was 13 or 14 or 15 and 0, he wasn't allowed to train less. He had to train harder.
Right.
Because we are always the mindset, someone's trying to knock you off.
Yeah.
So in order for us to be as good as we are, we need to be better. We need to be to the top of our game. We gotta be in shape every minute of the game and have every answer. So it's our time, but we have to work at it.
And that's an interesting analogy on the sports. And Dave, you're front and center. So all three of us, I think, actually, I don't know, were you in Chicago with us?
No.
Dan and Brian, we got to go to Chicago, and we were at a manufacturing forum, and we were able to see the future of where manufacturing is going. And Dave, I know you've been able to travel. You've been in Europe, you were in South America, I believe. You've been traveling. What is the importance? And because some people look and they go, oh, so economic development is going on this trip to another jurisdiction. Explain why it's important for what Dan's been talking about, how we got to be at the top of our game. How does that keep us at the top of our game? Or what's the message, or what's the reason for going to Europe and doing an economic development tour?
You know, the part of the reason is you layer on the trade agreements that I talked about. But to Dan's point, you know, we have a lot of positive momentum happening, but that's when you have to, you know, put the pedal to the floor and really move forward. And there's a lot of interest out there. When GE, a global company, decides to make an investment in Welland, that reverberates globally. Now, if they're starting to ask questions as to why did GE come and why did they and why are they making this investment, if we're not there and we're not telling the story, then it gets lost. And the news cycle is relatively short in that world. And especially when you're dealing with these, you know, Fortune 500 global companies that are looking to do investment, and they're looking at, you know, other credible companies that are doing that. We have to be backing that up. So we have to be full court press. I'm using driving, I'm using sports, but this is the time that we have to move it. And when we talk about why GE came, you know, part of the reason was the City of Welland owned land, right? So Dan's a deal maker. He's able to convert, and you're able to take something that's a 500,000 square foot facility and get a building permit in, what, 6 months? And be in less than 6 months.
In 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks.
That's unheard of.
Think about this. GE made their announcement June 1st of last year. Right? So we're not even 12 months out. And steel structure's complete, right? They're starting on all of the mechanical systems and everything. That's unheard of, right? That message goes out globally. PCL, who's doing the work, is you know, they have global contractors, they're out there, but we need to back it up. So that's why it's critically important for us, and not just the region, but it needs to be a team that's going out and be selective and understand the markets that we do. So we need to do the proper research, so we're not just shotgun approach and going all over but it needs to be a focused and strategic plan that builds on, you know, the momentum that we do have, because otherwise they'll move on to the next community.
I'm going to pivot, Brian, just for a bit. We've got the Meridian Center in downtown St. Catharines. We've got the First Ontario Performing Arts Center. People might be asking, oh, you know, why is that important to economic development? What has that allowed us to do? And I think we'll look at even the Scotties. What has that allowed us to do to leverage those buildings from an economic development standpoint?
So they're more than just a community facility. It's a home of our beloved Ice Dogs, our Niagara River Lions, and the concerts in between. So what those buildings are doing, both through the Performing Arts Center and Meridian, they're drawing a different crowd to downtown St. Catharines. That's a Niagara crowd. It's a Hamilton crowd. It's a bit of a GTA crowd. We're seeing the U.S. Citizens come across the border for our venue. It's changing the face of downtown forever. We're Niagara's urban growth center, but I say Niagara's urban growth center, not St. Catharines urban growth center. It's filling the Team Niagara gap in where the entertainment amenities are. Certainly we have Niagara Falls, which is equally important from a tourist perspective, but downtown has become the office financial hub of the region. It always was, but it's becoming a better place to visit.
But we've also, and I think one of the areas that people may not see, you've hosted some delegations to the Meridian Center and talk about the importance of being able to do that.
So sports tourism is huge, but even more important is getting those events that bring those people back. So FIBA, the Federation of International Basketball, will be here in June of 18. That's a huge tournament for St. Catharines. It's a huge tournament for Niagara. So we bring the delegations through, we show them the facility. We work with council to strike the right deal that keeps them coming back, and we keep the lights on.
I remember the one story, and I think, Brian, you set it up, where we had the prospective owners of Sky Zone, and they hadn't really confirmed yet whether this was the community that they wanted to come into, and you set it up so they can go to see the Ice Dogs game. It was like, I think 5,000 people were there to watch the game,
it was a
5,600 playoff run,
Yeah.
and they were on the fence until they went to the Ice Dogs game. And then after the game, I believe you were telling me that they came out of that game going, all right, yes.
Yeah.
They didn't know if this would be the place to launch.
Yeah, so they're two gentlemen from up north. They don't know the Southern Ontario market well, but it's a franchise they wanted to own, and they had the rights to Niagara region. They chose St. Catharines. We toured them around. They looked at some prospective property. Wanted to show them what the community means to us. So we attended a Dogs game with them, and they were overwhelmed at the crowd and response and what their market could be here. And they're sharing in that success today.
And so what we've seen today, folks, is that we've seen how our economy has become more global, how we were able to attract a global company to our community, and how we're leveraging all of our assets together to attract business to our community. And I do believe this is our time in terms of where we're going as a region and how we're being seen on a global stage. And so the future looks bright. And I'm going to say this, the future looks brilliant, taking a turn of phrase from the GE factory that's being built. So we have a lot in front of us. I want to thank the economic development crew, Dan, Dave, and Brian, for the work that you're doing. And I hope the public took away from here today that investing in economic development is a good investment that produces long-term results. And I believe, as the mayor of the City of St. Catharines, we need to invest more into our community from economic development. And I advocate the same at the region, and I know Dan believes it's the same as well. And Mayor Campion is a big champion of economic development. So we've got to take the opportunity to seize the moment. And folks, I think you're going to see a lot more announcements coming forward. And until then, enjoy the summer that's ahead of us. Enjoy all that we can do in our communities. And we'll see you out and about. Take care.